Jack Ma, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett are all over social media, and their advice is potentially going to destroy your life. The problem with taking advice from Jack Ma, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett. Before I get into explaining this, I do want to preface this discussion by saying these people are all obviously hugely successful, much more than I, and the problem I'm talking about is not their fault either. However, if you follow their advice, it's most likely going to end poorly for you. Now, it's not their fault that whatever they say gets a lot of attention because of what they've done, but you won't do what they've done, and that's not an insult. They don't do the same things as each other, so they don't follow each other's advice necessarily either. But to put them into perspective, according to CNBC, there were 2,825 billionaires in the world last year. There are 7 billion people in the world, and so approximately 1 in 2.5 million people are billionaires. Meaning that if you're 1 in a million, you're still only 40% chance of being a billionaire. And these people are worth way more than a measly $1 billion. So they're probably closer to 1% of the 1 in a million. So what does all that have to do with their advice destroying your life? Now let's run through Mark Zuckerberg as an example. If Mark Zuckerberg was born 10 years earlier and still invented Facebook, it probably would have been like MySpace, and he would instead be Tom from MySpace, who no one ever quotes and is only worth a few $100 million. I mean, what a loser. But seriously, just that slight difference in the events that conspired to enable Mark Zuckerberg to create Facebook would not have happened. Would he have been wildly successful anyway? Probably, but who's to say how that would have affected his life? And unless you're coming up with a new social media platform that everyone will use, then doing what he does won't really work for you and probably will fail. If you watch a movie like The Social Network, obviously it's not a documentary, but he doesn't come off as a nice person, but I'm sure he's nice in real life. But every meme mentions how he comes across as a robot, and look, some people do naturally come across that way. However, if you were to come across as a robot in your job, it might actually cause serious problems. Obviously, depending on your role, it would have varying effects, but for example, if you were a high-end real estate salesperson, you couldn't come across the way that Mark Zuckerberg does. Jack Ma, as another example, obviously created an amazing empire, but if he grew up in another country, would he have done this? His success relies heavily on the fact that he was one of the first internet entrepreneurs to emerge from China, and he was really good at it. However, are you living in pre-internet China? If not, then unfortunately you can't just do what he did. This is not to say that these people wouldn't be wildly successful in another era. We don't really know, and realistically we never could. However, even so, they also happen to be wildly successful and in the right place at the right time when things really took off. They are also so far removed from the problems of everyday life that we all have to face, that they can't really relate to the majority of our lives. Don't get me wrong, as the saying goes, more money, more problems. But those problems are very different to someone who's 25 and has just been fired. This same situation occurs more obviously in sport. If you look at the coaches in sport, sometimes the stars of the sport become good coaches, but the majority of star athletes don't become good coaches. And a lot of coaches were either mediocre athletes or barely played at the high level. A lot of times it's been said that this is because the star players can't relate to managing the average or below average players. When a star player wants to change the outcome of a game, they can insert themselves into the game and make things happen. Whereas an average player or below average player needs to be managed to keep them at their best and to push through when they may not have the same natural abilities. This principle is also heavily discussed in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, which heavily changed my thinking on the world. In the book, he discusses how it's not just about being the right person with the right attitude and work ethic. There is also an element of the environment that creates highly successful people. He also discusses how people being in the right place at the right time, which also includes their family, their culture, and their friends, which all play into their success. I don't think these elements define you or make you a success. However, they definitely can help or make it easier for people to become successful, and in some cases assist to catapult success which others might not. In the book, he covers in detail about Bill Gates and an opportunity he got while younger that helped him to get where he was that someone else not in that position would not have, where he had access to computers when many others did not. However, he still had to put in the work to put that into place. Does that mean he's not a self-made billionaire who created Microsoft where many others would not have taken that opportunity presented to him? Absolutely not. However, we either need to find that opportunity ourselves, which we won't even know that it is such an opportunity at the time, or we need to make our own way in life, and you can still be successful. But the point is, if someone who is broke and started a pizza restaurant that no one has heard of, which now makes them $100,000 profit, is probably going to be able to give you better advice than someone who made billions because they made the most of a one-off opportunity. These people will all have achieved greatness, but they no longer have to deal with the same problems regular people do and haven't for a long time. They don't know the pressures of of making their mortgage payment. They don't know what it's like to not want to hire a lawyer to fix a problem because lawyers are expensive. They don't know what it's like to have to navigate tax systems that are incredibly complicated when they can't afford a full accounting department and so on. They also don't know what it's like to walk around and not have everyone recognize you and treat you differently because they know who you are and how much you are worth. This is just some food for thought on who you take advice from, and how it's actually better to take advice from someone who's only slightly ahead of you rather than someone who is miles past you. It's not their fault that they got these opportunities, but they did get those opportunities and they wouldn't be the same success without them. And the majority of people aren't going to get these opportunities or be lucky enough to maximize them. So good luck on your journey and don't be put off by what billionaires tell you.